Chicago? What do you say? Cubs gonna win today.
Welcome back to another exciting edition of the Pointless Exercise podcast. We're here with national baseball expert David Brown. Dave's off the injured list. People missed you last 2 weeks ago. You're like, where is he? He said he's alive. He's coughing somewhere.
Yeah, I've had an illness. When I get, it wasn't pneumonia, but it was bronchitis. And when that happens, a lot of people can relate, the cough lingers.
Yeah.
So
after you feel better.
It's been lingering.
Even after you feel better, you're still coughing, and then everybody thinks you're still deathly ill.
Yeah.
So I used to get bronchitis. I used to get it a lot as a kid, and I was like 14, and I went to the doctor, and the doctor's like, "Do you smoke?" And I thought it was the funniest thing he'd ever asked. And then he looks at me and he goes, "Well, your mom does, right?" And I go, "Yeah." He goes, "That's why you're getting bronchitis, because of your mom. It's your mom's fault." My mom was the worst smoker in the world. Like when she quit,
constantly missing her mouth.
Basically, she was kind of like Ted Stryker and his drinking problem. But that would have been painful if she'd like accidentally put cigarettes out on her forehead. I have a smoking problem. Oh, she would like light a cigarette and then not puff off of it at all. Like it's like holding fire in her hands is what she seemed to like. So I think everybody else in the house got more smoke than Mom did. Like if she had any health problems from it, it would have been secondhand smoke from her own cigarettes. And so when my nephew, the oldest grandkid, was born, she quit. And I remember Dad telling me this should not be that hard for her to quit. Because I don't think she's had 4 grams of nicotine in the last 40 years. And she even commented, "Boy, it really wasn't that hard to quit." I'm like, "Yeah, we know what. You were terrible at it." Well, I'm glad you're feeling better.
Thumbs up.
So I thought we would play one of our fun games where we go through the standings and you tell me whether or not we could just cross a team off. They're done.
Right.
If they should just start selling everything. And if they have pitching, they should sell it to the Cubs. There is an order to this, but the order is just I went division by division and picked the teams off the bottom. So we jump around a little bit. Like you think the Rockies would be first because it'd be the easy one. Although I don't know. I don't want to prejudge. Maybe you think they have a run in them, but they're not at the top of this list. So we'll get to them. We're going to start in the NL Central with the only team you can say is out of it so far, and that's the Pittsburgh Pirates. 37-50, 14 games out in the Central and 10 games out in the wild card. They fired their manager.
They did.
Oh, when they fired Derek Shelton, that's his name. And they hired, which Kelly did they hire? Don
Kelly.
I was watching a
Pat Kellys, but they didn't compare any of them.
I was watching a Pirate game, and I'm looking in the dugout going, that guy looks like Gene Lamont. And it is.
It is.
They brought poor 76-year-old Gene Lamont out of Kirkland. Not the generic Costco brand, but the little city in Illinois. And they're making him be the bench coach. He's got better things to do with his last few days of his life than watch terrible baseball every day.
I wonder if he's a smoker too, hastening his own demise. Yeah, Joe Lemon. He's a funny guy because he comes off as this really laid back guy, but man, he's a good swearer when he gets going. It's funny. Yeah. So two sides. There's a red ass Gene Lamont out there. Don Kelly, I think, has like the highest. I don't know this, but it seemed like in the first 7 games he got thrown out 3 times. Like, I swear that's a number. So he's Lelanding it up or
Yeah.
Maybe secret Gene Lamonting it up.
He is an old Jim Leland, I think, player and maybe coach. Leland was very excited
Maybe.
when he got the job.
Yeah.
As excited as Jim gets these days. There's a smoker for you. That's a guy.
Big time.
He knows how to do it. There's no.
He does get excited, but he's also a good crier. He gets very emotional.
Yeah,
That's how it
yeah.
comes out in Jim Leland. The tears.
Like we talked about on a previous podcast, I was very impressed with. They had a clip of Earl Weaver getting thrown out of a game, and you could see the little pouch that they had sewn into his jersey for his cigarettes.
Right.
That's a commitment to smoking. I don't want to put them I sit on them and put in my pants. You're going to have to put one in the front of my shirt. Okay.
I like to think that in '79, if they did an Orioles jersey giveaway in the rep for the kids, even they had a little pouch there in the jersey to honor Weaver.
Did they ever have a Earl Weaver tomato giveaway? And he grew tomatoes in the bullpen, right? Wasn't that a big deal?
Yeah, he did. Alice Sweet from Norfolk wants to know.
Oh, tomato face. No, wait, that's not right. I went to an Orioles game and all I got was this lousy tomato. Would that be worse than Randy Myers' poster day when he blew the save and all the Cub fans threw him onto the field? If Earl had given out tomatoes and everybody just whipped him at the Orioles? No, Dodgers, didn't they have to... They didn't forfeit, but they got... Wasn't there a game suspended? It was baseball giveaway and there was a bad call and all the Dodger fans threw the balls on the field? And they had
I remember that
against the Cardinals, yes. And the Cardinals had to go hide in the dugout. They picked up all the balls. They should have got one of those carts like at a driving range. Just driven around, scooped up all the balls. Yeah.
Yeah. But it would have been a Dodger Stadium. They don't have a mascot, but it would be funny if the mascot were driving it, if they had one.
Yeah. Could have got the San Diego Chicken to come up.
True.
Give them an emergency call. I need you to drive the ball cart. The what? Never mind. We'll explain when you get here. I'm guessing we can probably give up on the Pirates.
Oh, yeah, your question. They have won 5 in a row.
They've shut out the Cardinals back-to-back nights.
10 games out in the wild card. I mean, yeah, yes. Okay. We can, yes.
All right.
Maybe they'll finish, what have the Pirates done the last 2 years? 77 and 85, something like that. Maybe they can get there, but that's not good enough. So, yes, cross them off.
So, an interesting note about the Cardinals is in their last 7 games, they have been shut out 4 times, and they have thrown 2 shutouts. So, in those 7 games, if you went to all 7, you only saw both teams score in the same game once. They've been shut out in their last 4 games against NL Central teams. The Cubs shut them out the last 2 games of their series, and the Pirates the first 2 in theirs.
Weird, very weird team. I'm surprised they're as over 500 as they are, honestly.
Yeah, they're bad. Like, even when they won the 2 games they won against the Cubs, it was just frustrating. It's like, God, they suck. How did they just win 2? And then they looked more like they're supposed to in the last 2, and they managed about 4 hits.
Yes.
The Miami Marlins. They're 38 and 45. They're 11 games out in the division and 7 in the wild card.
I've been meaning to look closer since they're playing the Twins right now, and they won yesterday. Edward Cabrera and Bending Rodriguez, and then Ronnie Enriquez shut them out 2-0. So I've been meaning to look at why have they won 8 in a row? How is this possible? And I haven't looked yet. So I'm guessing it's just they've got some good pitching, and they did have that going.
I think it's because Sandy Alcantara and Edward Cabrera are busily auditioning to go pitch for real teams.
Right.
And they got Yuri Perez back too, right? And he healthy.
They do. His ERA is over 6, so I don't know if he's got it together yet.
Yeah.
yeah, the Marlins are tricky because every once in a while they'll compete and you don't know why. But I'm going to say that yeah, they're not going to make the playoffs. We can cross them off too,
Right.
especially because, like you said, they'll be trading a couple assets here
Yes.
before long.
The Atlanta Barbs, 38-46, 11.5 out, 7.5 out. They are behind the Marlins in the standings.
Unexpected, I would say. Won't have Chris Sale at least until
Yeah, they put him on
mid-August.
They moved him to the 60-day injured list.
Yeah,
with his little when he broke his ribs pitching or sneezing. I don't know what he did. It was bird bones.
No, he fell on them.
Oh, he fell
He was
on
diving for a play.
Oh.
He broke his rib that way.
So he was pitching, but he didn't break it pitching. He broke it fielding his position.
He broke it fielding. Yeah,
All right,
I mean,
I feel a little better
he
about
broke
that.
it diving.
Yeah, attempting.
It's
to field
almost
his
like,
position.
are we sure that he doesn't have osteoporosis? I don't know. He's very bony.
Yeah.
I think, and I made this. I think I made this joke. I don't know if it was on this podcast or not. It's been a while since we've been on it, but I made a joke that he fell. It must have been this one because I said he fell. He has also a little pocket in his jersey where he keeps a box cutter in case he's got to chop up a throwback uniform he doesn't like, and he was wearing it, and he dived and fell on that, and that's why he broke his ribs.
I think the throwbacks that he cut up with the White Sox, if I'm right, were the real dark blue ones.
They were the jammies.
The ones they would have worn typically, the ones that everybody's they played a whole season with shorts. It was 2 games, right? That they actually wore shorts, maybe 1.
I believe it was 2.
But I think it's those uniforms.
Third, but yes.
And he would look ridiculous in them because they're kind of big and wide, and he's the opposite. Yes. And it was kind of like I used to joke that if Carl Edwards Jr. shrugged, his jersey would fall to his ankles.
Yeah.
I think the same would have happened with Sale in that jersey. So he saw those, went, oh, fuck no. And went and got the scissors and went running around like Frazier in the bar. I'm running with scissors, running around the bar.
Yeah. You wear those uniforms if you have the right bill and you look sort of like a bell ringing, where the bell goes from side to side, but the middle part you can see.
The only guy who looked good in those was Ron LaFleur.
He did.
Those were not his babysitting outfit. That was Ron, right? Him and his wife got arrested for abandoning their baby because he was off trying to find drugs. They left it alone in the house for a few days. Yeah. Anyway, he's dead. What do you think about the Bars? They got a run in them?
No,
they don't.
No, I'm persuaded that they're toast.
It is funny that Ronald Acuna came back, and he's immediately at like MVP level, and it did nothing for them.
It's an odd sport, but they're Alex Anthopoulos has not. They've had problems being the best version of themselves ever since they won the World Series. They haven't really got it together since in different ways since then. So I think he's kind of failed at that. It's funny how that 2021 season, they did everything right and actually got really lucky because it all kind of worked out. It wasn't like, he acquired people like Eddie Rosario and whatever. And
World Series MVP, Jorge Soler.
Yeah.
Yeah, their entire outfield went down, and they just he patched one together, and they won the World Series. It was amazing.
They did.
Very reminiscent, except the Cubs didn't win anything. Of the 89 Cubs, where their opening day outfield all got hurt, and they had to actually play, like, I guess Jerome Walton was in the opening day outfield, but like him and Dwight Smith and the great Lloyd McClendon got a big run in 89 and saved their season. The Washington Nationals, 35-49, 14.5 out in the East, 10.5 out in the wild card. Recently lost 11 in a row just for fun.
Dead as a doornail.
So my question about the Nats, if you look at their roster, they have 5 players who are 1 WAR or better. It's not good. That's not good. They have 3 who are more than 1.1, They all came over in the Juan Soto trade. C.J. Abrams, James Wood, and Mackenzie Gore. If they hadn't made that Juan Soto trade and Juan had just left, would they have won a game this year? Now, Mike Rizzo's still there, right? He got a big extension and he stuck around.
He's still there.
Shouldn't somebody bring him in the boardroom and go, all right, you made this, you traded Juan, it ended up being a very good trade for us. Difficult situation, trading a great player. But you've done nothing else. Nobody else on this team is worth your shit. How did you manage to screw everything else up?
Yeah, he couldn't have. He all his mojo was in this one trade. You can't do a Juan a superstar trade like that any better than they did.
Yeah,
and it's like, well, my work here is done. Apparently,
Yep.
Baseball rosters are 26 or 40 or 50 people long. So
they got 3.
They got 3.
The other 2 guys who are 1 WAR better are Brad Lord at 1.1. So he's good Lord this year. And Kyle Finnegan at 1 WAR. That's it. And Finnegan is most likely traded. So they'll be down to
most likely
just maybe Brad. Probably trade him too just for fun. All right, this one a little more difficult. Probably, I'm not going to guess. They're over 500. The Arizona Diamondbacks, 43 and 42, 10.5 out in the West, but only 3 out in the wild card.
I mean, they're in it. They have a lot of problems, a lot of injuries. But Torey Lovello has a good clubhouse vibe going, so that makes up for some things over the 162 game season. Ultimately, they'll probably run out of gas, but I could see them being in the race until the very end.
Would they improve their playoff odds if they sold Zach Gallen so he didn't have to pitch every 5 days and ruin their
I don't know exactly what. I don't know if you can look at how you sell Zach Gallen. Are there things in his statistics or in his presentation when you scout him in person that say, well, the ball's moving good, and what do you, my question is, what do you get for him?
Right.
You get him out of there.
Yeah, I was saying just do it so he's not killing your rotation every 5 days. Find a team that's like, we just make a couple of tweaks. It'll be great. Why don't you make the tweaks? Oh, what? No, we want you to make the tweaks. You take it. It'll be fun.
I know you're at least half serious, but the Twins have a similar issue, kind of, with Bailey Ober, who has just been terrible. And his velocity's down a little bit, and you have to wonder how long he's going to be bad, if it's bad for his confidence and all that. And people are like, we got to get him out of there. But then, what is the alternative? Because they don't really have great additional guys in the minors to bring up. Is there like a Rich Hill out there somewhere? I know Rich Hill's with the Royals. Maybe they could go get if Rich Hill had a guaranteed contract, he could get out of his Royals contract and be brought to the majors. So
I thought Rich had been traded to the Nats. I don't know if you saw who the Nats jersey sponsor is. They just
Turkey
got
Hill? Who was
it? AARP.
Yes.
That's literally
I thought that was a joke.
Literally their jersey sponsor now.
That's funny.
But
yeah, who do you replace? I mean, what do we do with Zach Gallen? But what do you do with the?
Because you kind of wonder, the Diamondbacks could almost try to do we could sell potential free agents and still try to contend.
What team just did that? Maybe not just, but yeah, that's a thing.
The Tigers last year.
The Tigers, yeah. Well, yeah, but that was.
I mean, they kind of did the same thing. They're like, how bad do we need Jack Flaherty? Turns out they didn't really need him that bad. And they brought him back. So he could be like the one guy with the 5 ERA on their current staff. But it was kind of strategic, right? It's almost like, we've got other guys. We can trade these guys. And everybody's like, oh, why are they giving up? And then they got hotter than hell and they, won a playoff round.
I always thought that, I don't know what they were thinking, really thinking at the time. I almost feel like that was an accident. and it, not so much that they like they didn't realize how good they could be as soon as they could be.
Yeah. Now, is that when they got Trey Sweeney? Did he come over in one of those trades? I don't remember. Or they just started playing him? But all of a sudden, he started playing really well.
He was part of the Flaherty trade. He was a Dodgers guy.
Okay. And that they were getting nothing out of Short because Javi was bad, and then Javi needed to have his hip replaced or whatever he did.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, they were getting some offense out of shortstop, and they didn't really miss Flaherty, and they started winning. But you're right. I don't think it was we know we can still contend without these guys. It was basically, we're going to be good next year. We're not going to be good this year. We might as well trade these guys now, and then they ended up getting hot and going to the playoff.
It might have been one of those, well, we hope we can play better kind of things. Well, we don't necessarily expect it. And I know they didn't expect to go whatever they did at the end of the year. I think they were probably thinking, well, if we go a few games over 500, we can get in the wild card race. So they did better than that.
Yeah. Well, and it helped they played in the NL Central, where thanks to the White Sox, everybody made the play. You get your free trip to the playoff. Where this year, that division, they're the only team over 500 in it right now.
Right.
But like the Diamondbacks, like I don't care what they do as long as they trade Eugenio Suarez to the Cubs. I just think he would help the last few months. And they got Jordan Lawler. Every time I read, they could trade him because they could just play Jordan Lawler at third. And I was like, they couldn't find another. Jordan Lawler can't somehow play both those guys.
Yeah, I suppose they could do a DH sort of thing. But two of their better players are middle infielders, so it would have to be third base or DH.
And they've got Josh Naylor, who they're probably going to trade if they trade, or only if they decide to sell, I guess. I don't know. But they don't have to. They don't have to make that decision yet. They've got.
Well, it's coming soon. But I see the Diamondbacks. I could see them maybe trading Naylor. I don't know, and the way Gallen is pitching, not helping them.
Yeah.
So far, I could. Your analogy is interesting with the Tigers. I could still see them winning games if other good things happen, and they even trade these guys. It's possible.
Yeah. All right.
They could bring up. They could bring up Naylor, or Lawler from the minors, and trade another infielder, and maybe he finally clicks at the major league level. I could see something like that happening. Yeah.
Yeah. Like if you decide, okay, it's inevitable we're not going to be able to keep Eugenio. If we trade him and we get something that we need, and then we can plug Lawler in. Yeah, we've traded a guy away who's already hit 26 home runs, but we could shore up something that's really hurting us because they have. Well, maybe it would be easier for them to do that if Corbin Carroll hadn't broken his hand. Just scoring runs is not a problem for them. But now, if you don't have him and then you trade Suarez away, all of a sudden you're not scoring, and that doesn't really help.
And they are going to have to get some decent pitching from somewhere because they also lost their closer, Justin Martinez, and it's not that they don't have anybody to close, but that's a big hit too. They've Mike Hazen always wants to go for it, so I don't know what kind of flexibility he's going to get from their tall man owner, Ken Kendrick, but I think I can see him making a series of trades where it's like, all right, these guys who are, their contract is up or they're expensive or whatever, they're gone, but still bring in other guys to fortify the roster. But they need a lot of fortifications, especially in the pitching staff.
Well, they won 83 games, right? 2 years ago, went to the World Series. Last year, won 88, didn't make the playoffs.
Right.
So they were better, but they didn't make it. And they're probably like, how many years do we have? Oh, they signed Carroll long term, so they're probably not so worried about like this core expiring. So maybe they're not. I don't know. All right,
their middle infield is signed for years. Ketel Marte, friend of the White Sox fans, and Geraldo Perdomo.
Here's your toughest one: the Colorado Rockies. 19-66, 34.5 out in the West End, only 27.5, only 27 out in the wild card. Should they go for it?
And what is for the White Sox?
Should they go for relegation to the International League? They'd be bad there too, probably.
Relegation to a different sport. Pickleball.
Any of you guys know how to play lacrosse?
Well, they've fired their chief operating officer and replaced him with another Monfort. So
Yes.
son of
Good.
Monfort.
I wonder if you were an aspiring baseball, you're just toiling away in some front office somewhere. You just legally change your name to Monfort and then show up for work with your ID, the Rockies. Could you become a vice president of something? Yeah, give that a shot. All right. The Baltimore Orioles, 37-48, 11 out in the East, 7 out in the wild card.
Toast.
Yeah.
They're toast. I think they had a couple. I mean, they had things like Charlie Morton finally figured it out. But they have so many starting pitching issues that keep recurring. I suppose they could get Grayson Rodriguez back and at some point and he could be good, but that hasn't happened yet. He's had so many injuries and he's underperformed as well, and I don't know if you can count on him anymore. They'll probably have some better luck, but again, that's turning into the Rays and the Yankees are pretty good, and the Blue Jays are playing well for some reason. So, really, the only team that I would be confident in them hurdling is the Red Sox. And even that, I'm not terribly confident. I think do we bet on the Orioles getting out of last place? I don't think so. So,
the West Sacramento, we can't even call them that. We're not allowed. The West Sacramento A's, 36-52, 16.5 out in the West, 9.5 out in the wild card.
People thought they'd be contenders.
Yeah,
I didn't necessarily see it, but I think it's the ballpark sucks, and it's. I don't know if it's actually like physically hurt other pitchers, but we see, their own pitcher, Luis Severino, complaining about it.
Yeah,
and
basically demanding that he signed the contract just because they needed to get to the minimum salary so they could still get revenue sharing. And he's like, okay, remember when we signed that and I did you guys a favor? Who are you trading me to?
Do they still? Would that hurt their? Would that hurt their revenue sharing stance? Because we're halfway into the season.
Yeah, they're like, we can't trade you, buddy. We will fall below the threshold. You're stuck here. Like very well could be. All right, we can cross the A's off. They haven't even got to the miserable part of the year where it's going to be. Well, it should be happening right about now, where it should be 140 degrees every day in Sacramento. Enjoy that. Enjoy your 6-minute walk to the clubhouse. You have to walk. You have to go out through, like when the Cubs were there. It's Seiya Suzuki. All of a sudden, he had to use the facilities, and he had to run out. He had to wait for the inning to end, and had to run through the middle of the field to get out there with his teammates heckling him all his way. Like,
how could you not put a toilet in the bullpen? I don't get it.
Get a bucket in the dugout or something.
Hopefully, if that's all he needed. Remember when the Cubs used to have their clubhouse down the left field line?
Yeah.
I always thought that
the best part was when a manager would get ejected, and then he would do his he'd wave to the fans all the way down to the corner.
Yeah.
How about the Minnesota Twins? 40-45, 13.5 out, and 4 out in the wild card.
I think they're in it, but not really. So you can't really cross them off yet because they do have a 13-game winning streak this year.
Yeah.
They will get Pablo Lopez back eventually. They can't get a good pitching performance, so the offense will get shut out for 2 games in a row. They're in one of those funks. Ultimately, I think they'll fail, but I don't think it will be yet. So, if this makes any sense, I don't think we can cross them off,
right?
But I think we'll be able to cross them off at some point.
And they're kind of their twins, the Kansas City Royals, 40-46, 13.5 out in the division and 4.5 out in the wild card. They're in almost exactly the same spot.
I'm going to cross them off. I'm gonna say the Royals are toast. Because the Twins have some players who could be doing better. The Royals don't even have those players. They have too many guys like I hate to point out Michael Massey, or they have too many guys who can't hit. And they don't have, oh my God, Mark Canha. He's just, I can't believe that he would be back with them when they come back from their road trip. He's got an OPS under 600. Ugh. And they just have too many holes in the lineup. And Bobby Witt is closer to human this year than he was last year. He's not superhuman.
Right.
Salvador Perez might be toast. He could get hot, but I'm not going to bet on it at this point. So their great players aren't playing as great as they can or could or did. And they've got 3 enormous holes in the lineup. Places that just can't hit. Jonathan India, very much an underachiever. In the first inning, he's got just terrible numbers, and he hits first or second.
Yeah.
Ugh, too many stinky hitters.
I could have told him that when they traded for him.
Wow.
How many of those holes could Hunter Renfroe fill if they just... He's still a free agent. No one has scooped up Hunter Renfroe yet.
I can't believe it.
They still have a uniform with his name sewn on it. They wouldn't even have to spend any money on it. I'm sure they got one in storage somewhere. All right, well, that's it. So we crossed off everybody except the Diamondbacks and the Twins. So if you're the Pirates, Marlins, Nats, Rockies, Orioles, Royals, or A's, just put up the fire sale signs. Let's go. Every week for the last 6 weeks, Bruce Levine has crawled out from under the... He lives, I believe, on the Marquee Sports set. He sleeps under the couch. And every Monday, he crawls out from under it, and he goes on the score, and he says, "This is the week Jed Hoyer is going to make a big trade." He's 0 for 6, but he's still got 4 more shots at it. Go get him, Bruce.
It's kind of in that regard, Twins fans are all getting flustered over all of the Mets fans and Yankees fans thinking up trades for Byron Buxton.
Yeah.
And they're like, while the Twins could sell something at the deadline, I suppose, Buxton has a no-trade clause. I think a complete no-trade clause, and that's one of the reasons why he signed the contract that he did. So I don't see him leaving. They could get a lot for him, if he happens to be healthy in 2 weeks, but I just don't see him being something.
And given his awful injury history, you would do that in a second. Well, he's a great player when he plays, but he spends an awful lot of time sitting in the clubhouse in shorts while everybody else is playing for various reasons. Now, you got to see, at the opposite end of the spectrum, you got to see the Los Angeles Dodgers up close and in person.
I did.
Now, I don't know if you do impressions, but what were your impressions of the Dodgers?
That they have are flawed and have a lot of problems themselves, but a lot of them are nice problems to have. Like, do we keep hitting Shohei Ohtani leadoff, especially when he pitches? Because it's extra strenuous to throw an inning, come off the field, and take an at bat right away. It's like old school NL ball in some cases, except most of those pitchers who hit in the National League there were no expectations that they would get on base, really, except for one in every odd pitcher. So so there's that.
Well, and if they were hitting in the first inning, something very good had happened for them.
True. So Mookie Betts has turned himself into maybe not a Gold Glove shortstop, but one of the 3 or 4 best defensive shortstops in the league, and now he can't hit anymore. So there isn't a physical thing, and the Dodgers say, and Mookie says, it's not related to him putting so much stress on his body at shortstop that he can't hit anymore.
Is it related to him spending 2 international flights crapping his brains out in the airplane bathrooms?
great question,
at the
Andy.
time, we couldn't believe they took him to Tokyo and made him.
No.
And he went back before the rest of the team did.
Now, when he came back for a while, he hit. But what he said, actually, what if I can just name drop for a second, what he told me, what he said to Pitcher List, was that he thinks what happened was when he got sick and came back and lost 200 pounds, that he got into some bad habits that he never really ironed those out. And his good hitting this year actually just might be a little luck, and that he is doing something with his batting stance or whatever. His hands are in the wrong place. He doesn't know. But he feels like something's off, and that's the reason. If there's any reason. Other than that, he doesn't know. So you figure that he's going to iron this out at some point.
He was so sick. They claimed he lost 15 pounds in 10 days. He weighs like 18 pounds. So it's unbelievable.
He couldn't take anything in, and he was bleeping it all out.
Yes, lots of stuff was going out. He is his OPS plus for his career is 136. This year it is 99. And it was 143 last year, 165 2 years ago. So yeah, it's a precipitous drop for he's 32. It's not like he's 37.
Right.
It should not be happening.
He has played for 12 years. And, you would think, again, I tie it back to the defense. He wouldn't be playing as good at shortstop that the metrics say he's playing and the eye tests say he's playing if there was some, he's getting too old for this ish kind of stuff. So that's not it. It was, well, I remember this though. Shohei's funny. He's not as good of a hitter as when he also pitches as he is in other times. So his numbers are precipitously, you can see that they're lower, whatever word I mean, when he's a leadoff hitter, and but they're still good. He's like the numbers that he puts up when he pitches as a leadoff hitter are, since he came into the league, are like 8th or 9th best among leadoff hitters. I did like a Fangraph search, and so it's still pretty good. So, but the Dodgers are thinking, well, maybe there's not enough time sometimes to get off the mound, and it's not like you standing in the outfield for 3 outs. He didn't have to work so hard in that second inning to get the Dodgers out, to get the Royals out. But there's like 2 minutes and 15 seconds between innings, and umpires are actually allowed to give him
extra
more time if sort of like they would with a catcher, or people can see like when a relief pitcher comes in, there's more than 2 minutes and 15 seconds. So there are exceptions to this. He didn't seem to get the time against the Royals, and he had a terrible at bat against Seth Lugo. He's waving at strike 3 like he'd never swung a bat before. So he didn't make an excuse out of it, because he's not going to make an excuse out of it. He just said he had bad approach. But so these are the little things, smaller things that the Dodgers have to deal with. And they're still winning enough games and enough over 500. They have so many players on the injured list that, if the playoffs started tomorrow, I wouldn't necessarily say the Dodgers should be a runaway favorite, because what would their rotation be? It would be Yoshinobu Yamamoto, Clayton Kershaw, this guy, Justin Wrobleski. You probably don't even know who that is. Most people don't. So
I can't spell it.
No, it's not that bad. He's born in Hoffman Estates, but he grew up in Georgia. So I thought, Polish boy, Chicagoan, but I don't know. So I wouldn't like their chances in the playoffs if they started tomorrow necessarily, but we'll see what Tyler Glasnow brings in the second half. We'll see if they can get Emmett Sheehan back, Blake Snell, Tony Gonsolin. I mean, some pretty big names are on the injured list. So, and if they're still on the injured list in October, it's questionable. Until that point, they're going to win 95 or 105 games and be a contender for the World Series.
So this is kind of what you were talking about, but not as specific. But just generally, as a DH, Shohei, 283, 373, 584, 956 OPS. As a pitcher, 197, 300, 426, 726 OPS. Some of that is all but 3 of those games are back with the Angels.
Did you get those at Baseball Reference?
Yes.
See, now you should look at Fangraphs, because look at those Baseball Reference stats. They only go back to 2023, do they not? Can you tell?
It should be his whole career.
When you look at Shohei Ohtani as a pitcher when he hits at Baseball Reference, at least when I did, it wasn't including this past year because of I don't know why it wasn't, because he's like a DH.
He's both. Yeah.
Yes.
Now he's both the DH and the pitcher, so I guess they have to pick one or the other.
So if you look at his stats,
so I'll bet these Baseball Reference ones are only from his Angels days, because they would classify him as the DH instead of as the pitcher, because he's going to stay in the game as the DH.
I just wrote about this. It hasn't been published yet, but hold on. Open, recent. I should be ready, but I'm not. Yeah, he threw like a pitch that was 102 miles an hour too. So I guess his arm's healthy. It was the fastest pitch he'd thrown since he threw one almost as fast in the World Baseball Classic 2 years ago. So, where'd it go? Okay. Ohtani's career hitting numbers on days he also pitches aren't as good as his overall results, but he's batting .279, .388, .492 in 233 plate appearances just as a pitcher. And that would rank 9th in weighted runs created plus among all leadoff hitters since Ohtani came to the MLB in 2018. So,
okay. So when did they change the
23?
So he had his whole last year with the Angels.
Yeah.
He was the DH and pitching. So those numbers aren't counted on Baseball Reference. So it's not just the 3 starts this year. It's in one entire season.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, correct.
That makes sense. He complicates everything.
It is complicated.
Way to go, Shohei. This used to be such a simple game. We got you doing 2 things at once.
There was one funny thing though. He was I retweeted it. There was a tweet. Someone was watching him warm up in the bullpen, and it was a hot 87-degree day with sun, and the camera pans to Shohei and zooms in, and you can see him in the corner of a dugout where there's shade, kind of like hiding like a vampire. And I thought, of course, this is just like Ichiro talking about August in Kansas City.
Yeah.
Other than 2 rats in a fucking sock, or fucking in a sock, or whatever Ichiro said.
Yep.
So it was. It reminded me of that.
Bob Costas' greatest interview question.
Yeah. Good pull, Bob.
I think if you look at his stats, they should be playing him in right field, because his career OPS as a right fielder is 1250. By far the best. It's 4 games, but still. But that's when Joe Madden used to, he would pitch and then he would go, he only did it 5 times, but he would pitch and then go play he'd just jog out to the outfield and finish the game. Like he was a college baseball player instead of a major leaguer.
I've kind of wondered how seriously they considered putting him in the outfield sometimes, like really. And I think that's, how like on Michael Jordan used to rest, he'd lean over and he'd grab the bottom of his shorts. I think that's, they give, instead of, that's what the Shohei equivalent is when he DHs, that he's taking a break in DH, and they're not going to let him play the outfield because he's got to save his energy somehow, somewhere. And that's the way he does it, by not playing defense. So,
I mean, let's say, God forbid, but say he hurt his elbow again this year, and now he's just going to be a player. He's not going to be a pitcher anymore. He's not going to try to come back a 3rd time. But he could still throw, well for a human. You would think he would be a good outfielder. I mean, he's fast. He's athletic. But I don't think we're ever going to have to worry about it. Well, maybe he's got 8 years left on his contract. At some point, he might be just a player.
Yeah, that's true. I think if no, in all seriousness, he could be a pretty good outfielder. Although you get in your 30s and
Yeah,
who knows. But yeah, I could see if he doesn't pitch anymore someday. I could see him playing the outfield sometimes. Absolutely, we might see that yet.
You were talking about him having less time now because of the pitch clock and stuff, and this cracked me up. It was 4 times Taylor McGregor told some version of the story that Kyle Tucker started wearing batting gloves because of the pitch clock. And the first 3 times she told the story, she never explained why. She just said that he did. The 4th time, she finally said, because what he told her was when he didn't like to wear batting gloves, but he had this whole intricate thing about he would get dirt on his hands and then some water on his hands and then some rosin on his hands and all that stuff. And he just literally, there's no time to do that.
Right.
He can't do it unless he's going to bat. If he's going to bat 3rd or 4th in an inning, he's got plenty of time. But if he's going to lead off or hit 2nd, he's just not going to be able to do it. So he started wearing gloves. But it was like, maybe, Taylor, you could have told that the first time you told the story.
Inverted pyramid, Taylor. Inverted pyramid.
Yeah. And we had
go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, we had a thing on the other podcast with Oleg and Praz about Jose Altuve. His biggest concern about playing left field was the run in from left before he would lead off an inning.
Right.
And the guys were like, well, what would that matter? And it's like, well, the major leagues have these weird little routines that they go through. And from second base, he had more time to do it.
Yes.
And a shorter run. And now he was going to be a little winded. And he had that much less time to get ready. And that was like his big concern, even more than, am I going to be able to catch a fly ball? It was, am I going to be able to get ready to hit?
Right.
So.
Well, the seconds do count. The Dodgers set up a stool. Well, they didn't set up a stool. It's the bat boy stool. Sort of like where the manager might sit in spring training. If you can envision that. Outside the dugout by the steps. So Ohtani, when he got off the mound after the bottom of the 2nd, could just go to the stool. He didn't have to waste time or energy going down the steps and up the steps of the dugout. And he'd sit there, catch his breath, put on his shin guard, and then a bat boy staffer would come by and sort of like a valet would stand there and hand him his stuff, his batting helmet, his gloves, and he'd take the stuff that Ohtani didn't need to pitch and give it to him. And he was still hustling to get back in the box by the 8-second mark, which is when you're supposed to get a penalty for not being in the box soon enough in the pitch clock. So, but like I said, the umpires can give, they have discretionary, to a lot more time. And I don't think he was granted at that time, but I don't know for sure. But he still looked rushed to me, and he had a bad at bat. So.
How many times could you get away with, as the team runs in and Shohei's got to lead off when he's pitching, one of the fielders gets almost to like the 3rd baseline and collapses on the field and lays in the grass face down. Trainers come out to check him while Shohei, leisurely gets ready for his at bat, and then they just pop up like, "Oh, I'm fine," and run into the dugout. You can do that a couple of times, right?
I think that time you could get
away
with it.
You can only do it once.
Yes.
Because I was trying to think, what are other ways? Now, if it was the opposite, if it was like you're worried Shohei after running the bases isn't going to be quite ready to pitch the next inning, then that's easy. That's, the damn pitch comp's not working. Oh God, look at this thing. Teams do that like 4 times a game as it is. If I was the pitch com guys, I'd be like, stop acting like this is unreliable shit just because you want to take a break and you don't have a timeout to use.
I don't understand Portuguese. I don't know why it's talking to me in Portuguese.
Every time I see it, it's still like, "Hi guys, the easy fix for this is if you're having problems with your pitch com, you got to use signs until you fix it. I'm sorry, we don't need to stand on the field for 3 minutes while you all jerk around with it, and some poor bat boy has to go, here's the one, this one's working."
Do it in the name of Dummy Hoy.
There's a podcast called The Dollop. It's these 2 comedians that go back and they write these long kind of tortured, they'll pick a historical figure or event, and they have researchers who do a bunch of research, and then they read through the bulleted points and make fun of them. And some of them are really good. They have a 3-parter on Pete Rose that is pretty good. I mean, they found even more detestable shit than Pete than I knew about. But they have one this week on a 1984 fight between the Braves and the Padres. And they get into a whole lot of stuff about the 3 John Birchers on the Padres, Eric Shaw and Dave Dravecki, and I forget who the other guy was. Anyway, they get into some of that stuff, but the best part is during the fight, somebody had done an interview with one of the Bat Boys, and there's some good stuff. Like the Bat Boys knew the fight was coming because Greg Booker in the Padres dugout was like, they kept throwing it. The whole thing was Pascual Perez hit Alan Wiggins to start the game, and then Ed Whitson was supposed to hit Pascal, and he kept missing him. Like through the first at bat, he missed him, and the second bat, he missed him again. And they were like, "We gotta take this guy out." But anyway, so one of the thing from the Bat Boy I never knew is, so as the fight started, and it was a pretty good one on the field, the Bat Boys supposedly were supposed to look out for the equipment and and run out and grab it so that like a bat didn't get broken. Maybe it's just so a player didn't step on a bat and fall down. But one of the Bat Boys from the Braves saw, I think it was a bat laying and he ran out to get it, and Alan Wiggins punched him. Thought he was a Brave and punched him. And Claudel Washington went over to the Bat Boy and goes, "Don't worry, I'll take care of it."
Oh boy.
Anyway. But yeah, so the what else we got with the Dodgers? Max Muncy seems to have fixed himself. He got off to a terrible start, but now he's
wearing glasses.
Yes.
He had an astigmatism.
Didn't work. Famously didn't work for Larry Boa, but it's apparently working for Max Muncy.
Right. Well,
I'm not going to tell the ball must look like a beach ball joke for the 15th time on the podcast. But that is what Harry Carey said during Larry's first at bat with glasses. Larry couldn't hit a beach ball either. But yeah, I guess the Dodgers are pretty good.
They have terrible outfield defense, if that makes you feel better.
Even the great Andy Pajes.
I mean, maybe he's not as bad as Teoscar, but Teoscar plays right field like he's never played it before. So,
yeah. God, if only they had a Gold Glove right fielder, they could play in right field. Gee, how could you fix that? Oh, I don't know. My good friend Jim Bowden did a survey. I'm sure he did it. I'm sure he didn't have an intern do it. He did it. He claims he surveyed 40 GMs around the league, which I joked before we came on. How many teams are there? Are you calling up the Steelers? Apparently it was 40 GMs and or baseball, like vice presidents of baseball operations. And
of the United States.
Oh yeah, I really want to know what JP thinks about all this stuff. He made his list of the players that are most likely to be traded, according to what people are hearing out there. And it's a list. Most of the guys on it are people that we certainly have been rumored for quite a while. Like the starting pitchers, number 1 is Sandy Alcantara. And there is a hope among the Marlins that he's pitched well in June, that now you're getting Cy Young Sandy now. I don't know that I would quite go to that extent if I was trading for him, but he basically was doing his Tommy John rehab in the majors the first couple of months and was not looking so good. I mean, he has looked better. But number 2 on his list of pitchers most likely to be traded is a guy the Cubs are being linked to now, and it's Mitch Keller of the Pirates. Yeah. I've always liked Mitch. I thought he might be kind of good. I guess
he's better than Brad, I think.
Oh, I don't know. He's the Cubs. The pitch lab fixed Brad.
Yeah.
He's an 8th inning.
I wasn't saying that as like a shot either, but I thought.
The thing I like about Brad is I've realized that he looks exactly like the actor Tom Sizemore.
Oh, I see it. Yeah. No. Does he have facial hair this year?
No. And so the GIF, every time he comes in, I use the GIF from Heat of Sizemore saying, to me, this is the scene where Robert De Niro's character, they had got to decide right then if they're going to try to do the big bank heist or not. Because
Right.
De Niro's like, for me, this is going to be my last one. If I have to do a stretch, I don't care. It'll be fine. But you've got a family. He's going through all this stuff. And the one guy they're not sure is going to want to do it or not is Tom's character because, and he's like, well, for me, the action is the juice. So I always have that gift because of every time Brad comes in. He's been good. Maybe Mitch is. Are they brothers? Maybe they're brothers. They've always wanted to play together. That'll be fun. Number 3 on his list is Cabin Boy, Merrill Kelly. And Jim's, his theory is because Merrill's going to be a free agent, the Diamondbacks can trade him and just bring him back. It's my favorite thing. I love the idea. These guys are like, well, you could just trade him, you could just bring him back. Yeah, well, a lot of times the guy doesn't want to come back, but that's fine. But he's also like 37 or something. So
that happened with Jack Flaherty. It almost, like you said, it almost never happens. But it actually did happen with Jack Flaherty.
Yeah.
Did it not? With Tigers. So.
The Cubs did it with God, what's his name? Why can't I think of him? The guy that Joe Madden had to take out of like every start after the 4th inning in the second half of every
Garza?
season. No, the guy they traded. He was on the World Series team. He was like the 4th starter. I can't think of his name. I've had a stroke.
Him and
Samardzija got traded.
Yeah.
To the A's, and they just brought him back.
Justin.
I love it when I do this, and there's a million people screaming at the podcast. Jason Hamill.
I said Jason, or I said Justin.
And it's funny because that was like the Red Sox theory when they traded John Lester to the A's. The whole thing was, we'll just bring him back. And Lester, he's told the story more than once that when he was with the Red Sox, he never could picture himself pitching for any other team. He's like, I'm a Red Sox for life. And they were trying to negotiate this contract, and they were getting kind of close, but they still had and the Red Sox were just going to do it strategically. We're going to trade him. We're going to get somebody for him. And who they got? They didn't trade him for Cespedes, did they? Whatever they're going to get for him. Then they're just going to bring him back. And he said when he got traded to the A's, the thing he realized was it's not that hard to change teams. Like the other team makes it really easy. And he's like, I could do this. I could change teams. And so they ended up in the Cubs instead of going back to the Red Sox. And he said he thinks if they had not traded him, he would have simply signed with the Red Sox and never left.
Mm-hmm.
But it basically convinced him that, you can change teams. That's not that hard.
It's like a Twilight Zone irony ending.
4th on their list, Andrew Haney from the Pirates. The Pirates are just lousy with pitching. And they're just going to trade it away. Because there are a bunch of guys on this list for them. And then they got 2 Zachs back-to-back. Eflin and Gallen. One with an H and one without an H. Maybe that's what Zach Gallen needs, is to add the H.
Eflin's got some sort of recurring injury, though. So.
Yep, and Gallen is recurringly bad this year. And then number 7 on there is my guy. When I didn't make fun of the trade rumor as much as like Jesse Rogers just kind of threw out a name like a month ago as somebody the Cubs might get. And then the Bleacher Nation guys immediately did a post, like this emergency post that the Cubs were interested in Edward Cabrera. And I was like, you don't have to do a post on every stupid rumor that Jesse Rogers pulls out of his ass. And now if I were a Jed, I think the number 1 guy I would be trying to trade for is Edward Cabrera.
Looked great against the Twins last night, that's for sure.
And you'd have him he's cheap, and you'd have him for like 3 years. He's like the perfect guy to go get, which is why the Marlins won't sell him for cheap, but I like him. I'd go for that. The relievers list has some old favorites. Number 1, Aroldis Chapman. I just wouldn't do that. But he's got good numbers. He's throwing hard again. I guess he never didn't throw hard.
Yeah, right.
I'm glad. I appreciate everything he did for the 16 Cubs. He basically was their bullpen because Pedro Strop and Hector Rondon both had weird injuries, and Joe just pitched him and get to the 7th. Doesn't matter. Aroldis is just going to come in. I don't know that I want to go through that again. So maybe not. 2 more Pirates who Jim thinks they might bundle. David Bednar and Dennis Santana. I don't know why. I would think you trade Bednar and then you make Santana your closer, but you're the Pirates. I guess you don't care. Take them
Maybe
both.
they want them to travel together as travel buddies because they get nervous.
The emotional. He's Dennis is David Bednar's emotional support Santana.
The emotional support teammate.
Oh, he's got to come with. What? Felix Bautista of the Orioles. Who's the one? So they sent somebody down. They must have sent. Did they send Cano down?
Yeah, they did.
Oh, that's not working out. I think here's one that doesn't make any sense to me, but it's the A's. The rationale from one of the executives also didn't make sense. Mason Miller. And one of the executives said, unless they're going to turn him back into a starter, they might as well just trade him.
Okay.
He has value, right? He's like good as a closer. Couldn't you leave him there? He's also signed through 2029. So I don't know why you would do that. That's a guy I'd get. Then there's the Cardinals and their dilemma. I don't think it's a dilemma. With Ryan Helsley.
Yeah.
Because they're looming, they're lingering in the wild card race, but he hadn't really been that good. So if somebody would give you something for him, he wouldn't necessarily be. You could trade him and not be giving up. I mean, just look north a little bit. The Brewers have done it. They've traded their closer and still tried to win. You can do that.
Well, he and Miller have had similar hiccups at times this season. So,
Helsley's big thing is he typically has not given up home runs, and he's given up home runs this year. So you just have to determine, is it a fluke? Because we're only talking like 5. It's not like he's given up, he's not Jameson Taillon. Of course, he doesn't pitch nearly as many innings. He's not on pace to give up 50. Emmanuel Clase made the list. He hadn't pitched very well, and now he seems to be pitching better. And he's like really good. So I get it, I guess. I don't know why.
Well, the Guardians aren't ones usually to buy at the deadline.
Right.
And they've sort of like the Twins, I don't think they're not going to make the playoffs, but I wouldn't say that they're out of it. They're going to be out of it either until the end. So.
And then he has 2 twins. How do you say Jhoan? Is it John? Johan?
Joan.
Duran. I like that. Joan Duran. And Griffin Jacks.
He's got them trading Griffin Jacks, huh?
He's got them trading one or the other, I believe.
Yeah. I suppose that's been talked about before. Duran has been better than last year. I mean, he throws over 100 miles an hour, but his fastball was not. He's somehow one of those guys with a 100-mile-an-hour fastball that's not effective with it. So he's been relying on his other pitches, and he's added he throws a splinker, they call it, like a split finger fastball, and also there's a curveball and a sweeper. The sweeper is the one that he's been working on. So he's been better than last year, but even he has moments sometimes where he'll be like Helsley. I mean, I could see them moving him, I suppose, but I don't see them moving Jacks, but maybe he's closer to free agency. I gotta look that up, actually. You remember Garth Jacks, the football player?
Garth Jacks?
Garth Jacks with the Cardinals and the... No? Okay.
No.
Griffin's his kid.
Oh. There you go. The guy who... a guy with a 100-mile-an-hour fastball who couldn't... I remember early Jordan Hicks throw 104 and couldn't strike anybody out. I'd say it was because it was perfectly straight. And after a guy saw it twice, then they could actually get the bat. It didn't mean they were hitting him hard, but that was like the frustration. How does this guy throw this hard? And he strikes out less than a batter an inning. Well, that's how. The position players have a lot of guys we've already talked about. Like his number one guy is Josh Naylor.
I could definitely see him, with some backfilling going on, maybe him moving. I wouldn't have a problem trading him.
Does he have to bring his pants with him when he gets traded? Does anybody have pants that big? Or does he have to bring? Can you dye these?
Can you dye them like Easter eggs?
If it was last year and they didn't match, they would look normal because nobody's uniform matched last year. Nobody
you can't use that hack anymore.
No. Ryan O'Hearn. Everybody is traded. I mean, it's like a given around the league that he will be traded. It's just where.
It is kind of a half surprise that he's still on the Orioles. His name comes up in trade talks so much. There was a guy that the Royals couldn't do anything with, and as soon as he left, the Orioles figured something out and made him a good hitter. So it's a guy the Royals could use for sure, too.
Number 3 on his list. I don't know what you'd get for him right now. Luis Robert. Bad and hurt. So probably no. I kind of feel like that window slammed shut. At least I'm sure they can trade him. But the idea of getting a big haul for him, I just can't imagine. You can't. No. He hasn't been good for too long. The physical tools can only get you so much when you look at his stat line and go, "Ugh, isn't he hitting 188?" I mean, it's not like he's hitting 240. And it's another one. Maybe they should just keep him and they could trade him in the offseason. It's like, well, okay, I thought that was last year. That's what they were going to do last deadline, and they didn't do it. 185.
He doesn't have a lot of power. I mean, he's just 313 slugging percentage. I mean, so even if you put 100 points of batting average on him, he's not hitting for power either. So.
I mean, it's not like this is just an outlier year. I mean, in 2023, he was an all-star. He had 264, 315, 542 with 38 homers and how many stolen bases? 20 stolen bases. But last year, 224, 278, 379. And then this year, 185, 270, 313. That's trending in the wrong direction.
275 on base percentage is his last 710 plate appearances.
Yeah. Number 4 is my boy, Eugenio. Mainly because he's in 120 games against the Cubs, he's hit 36 home runs.
Hey, Eugenio, guys.
And the guy who would love it the most is Pat Hughes. Because Pat loves to say, hey, Eugenio. He makes a full meal out of it. And he's still depressed that he lost Wilson Contreras. We got to give him somebody. Although I did say, between Wilson and William being in the division, he gets 26 times a year. He still gets to say Contreras. But he would love to have a Eugenio. Cedric Mullins of the Orioles.
Yeah.
And then here's an interesting one. Jarren Duran. Thought being in order for their outfield of the future, that you've got Roman Anthony, you've got Cedane Rafaela, and you need to pick between Jarren Duran and Wilyer Abreu. But I'm pretty sure they traded their DH rather famously.
They did.
So I think if you wanted, you could easily play all 4 of these guys. So maybe you don't have to do it.
Now. Russian Hands Roman Anthony is DHing, and they're like, well, we don't think he's going to be a DH for the long term. But as you just pointed out, nonetheless, there he is, and it's happening. So
Duran hit 19 triples last year, and he has 9 already this year. He led the American League in doubles and triples last year. I found just interesting. So much, I didn't write it down. I just remembered it. So it's probably wrong.
That's a cool stat, though.
I did like that in the write-up, Bowden said the Pirates have 2 untouchables. One is Paul Skeens. And the second one is Andrew McCutchen. It's like, well, that doesn't seem wise, really. I mean, yes, it's cool. You're an iconic player for an iconic franchise. You'd like him to retire as a Pirate, but if you could get something for him, you probably should get something for him. You traded him away once. You got Brian Reynolds for him, and now they play together, which is fun. Maybe try that again.
Right.
And I don't know what you'd get. I mean, some of you looking at McCutchen as a fourth outfielder or a bench guy, so you're not going to get a lot back. So maybe it's not worth going through it again. But it was funny. It was shocking to see that of their entire roster, the two guys they won't trade are the best pitcher in the league and a 38-year-old backup outfielder.
There would be some trauma for the fans, and the Pirates. I guess they have to be careful there because they took down the Clemente sign on the scoreboard and they did something else that was insensitive. So they don't have much going for them. So whoever you were to get back, it better be another Brian Reynolds, or else it probably ain't worth it.
It makes sense not to trade him. It's just the rationale is
funny,
weird. Angels outfielder Taylor Ward, whose father was Montgomery. Grandfather? Great-grandfather? Montgomery Ward's been around forever.
I love cataloging baseball games with you.
He was linked to the Cubs in a trade rumor, because the one thing the Cubs are lacking, it's outfielders. It's like, who's going to play third? Are we going to move Ian Happ to third base? Maybe not. They got Adolis Garcia on the list. Maybe the Cardinals would like a redo. They can bring him back. They just cut him. So he ended up on the Rangers. Then they have the other, it was either Duran or Abreu. They have Abreu as being less likely to be traded than Duran. And then Stephen Kwan. Are the Guardians going to trade Stephen Kwan? They have such little offense. How can you trade a guy who at least gets some hits?
I can't see that. I mean, the Guardians have had trouble putting an outfielder together since even when they went to the World Series. Yeah. He's a good outfielder. Yeah. They haven't had more than one in 10 years at a time. So I know they have a couple outfield prospects, but there are other prospects in the outfield that hadn't panned out. And that'd be bad PR to move him.
Angels infielder Luis Rengifo. I could see that. That's the kind of guy that would be valuable. You can play multiple positions. You could upgrade your bench. Yeah. You could, team that doesn't
maybe
have
him in a Taylor Ward package, even though the Cubs don't need outfielders, I guess. But.
Well, Taylor Ward could just replace Kyle Tucker next year. That'd be good. And then the last two, Alex Bregman. His explanation for that was the Red Sox and Bregman and super agent Scott Boras are currently discussing a long-term extension. If that goes south, maybe you just trade Alex, get something for him.
Maybe he will too.
Yeah, you trade him to a lot of things are south of Boston. And then the last one, Nick Castellanos.
It's a deep drive to left field. Makes it 4-0. Well, if you're a man of faith like Jim Bowden, no doubt is. Yeah, I definitely see him being moved. That's definitely possible. Although the Phillies are another team where they don't have a lot of great production out of the outfield. It's been a sore spot. So that doesn't necessarily help that. But
it's been funny to me that
back out there, I don't think.
It's been funny to me that Nick is still playing right field for them. Right. Like at some point they wouldn't have been like, you know what, he's not a good outfielder. He's a terrible right fielder. Maybe we should find a way to put him in left. But no, they just keep playing him in right.
He even told him when he got to the playoffs, he's like, well, I wasn't really paying attention before because he was making some good plays in the outfield and he suddenly was better in the playoffs. He's like, it was kind of boring out here.
Yeah.
But now I'm focusing because
I don't try to play defense during the regular season.
Right.
And he made that one great, I think it was against the Mets. He made the one great throw. it was one where the outfielder is running. It's going to be a foul ball and there's a runner at third. And everybody's like, don't catch it, because the runner's going to score. He grabs it almost in the stand, spins around, makes a perfect throw home, and throws a guy out. Like, of course, the third base coach is going to send the guy 100 out of 100 times because it's Nick Castellanos. And it was like the one time he made the throw. Threw the guy out. Yeah, well. So the last thing I want to talk about real quick was Rob Manfred is doing interviews, which is always scary whenever he decides, because he's going to put his foot in his mouth. He's going to call the trophy a piece of metal, or he's going to do something stupid. But what he's doing right now is through the media, he's trying to talk to the less well-paid members of the Major League Players Union. And this is a page out of the NFL handbook. This is what the NFL does. Basically, one of the things he said was, he basically, without saying it, he's saying, you know who would benefit from a salary cap the most? It's the owners. No, not the owners. It would be the kind of rank and file baseball player, because 10% of Major League Baseball players make 72% of the money.
Yeah.
And I love the mental gymnastics it takes then. It's like, okay, so if we paid the stars less, you guys would get more. When the reality is, we're going to pay the stars less, and you're also going to get less, because we're going to cap the total amount of payroll. The logic behind this is, and it works in the NFL, is the last few times they've signed a CBA, the quarterbacks, especially the guys who make all the money, go on about how terrible the deal is and how there's no way they should ratify this deal and blah, 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 blah. And then the guys who make up like spot 20 to 52, 53 on the roster are like, the NFL owners managed to put in like small raises for those people.
Right.
Knowing that there's enough of them that if they're like, fine, this deal, it's a little more than I got now, I'm going to play for 1-2 more years because this, and they get them to vote for it and they ratify the deal. And so the only defense against that is the players union in the NFL not allowing the deal to get voted on. You know, the owners stretch it out to a point where it's like, fine, we have to vote on this thing and it's going to pass. The owners really want a salary cap in baseball. And to me, as soon as I heard this, that this is what they're trying to do. This is them setting the stage for the long, protracted lockout where a deal finally gets to a point where they're like, fine, we'll let the guys vote on it. And then the guys at the bottom vote for it because they think it's going to be a little bit better than if they wait. Because it doesn't make financial sense to cap it. Baseball doesn't need a salary cap. There is no owner who doesn't increase his payroll because he can't. They don't increase their payroll because they don't want to. And this is all about, it's frustrating in Chicago, an owner like Tom Ricketts, who basically just wants a salary cap to try to put constraints on the Dodgers and Mets. He wants to cap what they can spend so that he can spend an amount he's more comfortable with and he doesn't want to stick out like a sore thumb anymore. He doesn't want, the whole revenue to payroll thing where they were ranked 23rd in baseball, which is embarrassing. This would artificially squish those two numbers together and would make it less embarrassing. And then they could not have to spend as much and maybe still win.
That's a great point you make about sort of planting those mental seeds with the players for, if and when there's a lockout of them going, well, we could maybe, players like me could do a little bit better if we had this deal, so let's vote for it. So that's a great point.
Because I've thought especially in the last lockout, I just remember saying, like, if I were the owners, I would raise the minimum salary like $200,000. And if you would do that, the players would pass whatever the thing was, because most of the players who are going to vote on this, they look at that as, that's a nice raise and I'm going to get one. And they're not going to look at it like, they're not worried about the top 10% of players. They're never going to get to that point. The top 10% of players is they could all vote against something, and the other 90%, if you give them just enough, you can easily get enough votes to pass it. And then the only recourse that the Players Association has is not allowing the deal to get to the point where it's voted on. But the owners didn't even want to do that. They're like, no, we keep that. Oh, you know how many guys are on the minimum salary? That would, yeah, the idea is you'd have to pay them a little bit more but you could limit how much these huge contracts that you don't have to pay out. But the reality is that doesn't appeal to a bunch of owners. There's a bunch of owners who never intend to ever give out one of those big deals.
Right.
So to them, that's all fantasy money. Like $400 million for a player, I'm never going to do that. I don't care. I want minimum salary to stay at $400,000. I don't want it to go to $6.
Because that's my neighborhood.
Just so we can pass this thing, so that it's harder for the Mets or the Dodgers to spend ridiculous amounts of money that I have no intention of ever spending, and so they can't even align themselves on that because they're like, "Man, screw that. Doesn't apply to me. That applies to like 6 teams. Let's keep the minimum low because that's what I'm paying." At least that's what But it's funny to have Rob be the messenger for this, right? Like the guy who, like, say, what did you do before you were commissioner? Oh, that's right. You were the chief negotiator for the owners. So when you talk about how the current deals you guys have are so unfair because you can't, who negotiated? You literally go back to like the last 5 CBAs have Rob's fingerprints all over them. But he's the guy who's like, you know what? We're going to come up with a thing that's going to be great for you. The union's not looking out for you guys. I'm looking out for you, Rob. I've been doing it for decades. I think it was Ken Rosenthal made the point. Like, if the goal of the owners was to increase revenue, their commissioner wouldn't be a former labor negotiator for them. It would be like somebody who has a media background or some way of where, to try to increase the revenue they can get for their TV packages or the revenue they can get out of other stuff. They basically signaled this when they brought Rob in, as we're just going to shrink. We're not looking to grow revenue. We just want to shrink expenses. It's going to be a lot of fun, I think, after the 2026 season. Well, on that cheery note. But, it's funny. We went through this exercise where we crossed off some teams. We crossed off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Which means there's 22 teams still in it on the 2nd of July. A bunch of them are probably not really in it, but they're in that. The third wild card makes it so it's like, if we just had a hot week, we could do it. It's the illusion of contention, which is what a big part of this last CBA was. There are a bunch of teams that they'd like to make the playoffs, but it's not that. They're not going to go hell-bent for it. But what they really like is if you can get to the middle of September and you can sell your fans on the idea that you're still in it. That you're still, it's the illusion of trying that is better than actually having to try.
And so, you talk about how owners are never going to spend $400 million on a player. They're also never really going to go for it because they're sort of already in it, or they have the illusion of being in it, the appearance of it. And they don't have to make a huge sacrifice for this season because, like you said, hey, we're a hot streak away as it is. So we don't have to add a lot of payroll at the deadline because we're already there. We're already contending. It's already a possibility. And maybe it isn't, maybe it isn't, but.
All right. Well, maybe in this next labor deal, they can do my idea, which is if you're still going to do this ridiculous thing with 3 wildcard teams, that you get rid of the divisions and you go back to the National League and the American League, and the top 7 teams make the playoffs.
Right.
Take away the advantages of like being in a division with the White Sox because you're competing with the entire league. But that would necessitate a truly balanced schedule where you play everybody in the National League the same amount of time instead of doing that. And there's already, it's funny, somebody was going on about, I really miss when the Cubs played the Cardinals 19 times. I don't. You don't need to play anybody 19 freaking times in a season. Honestly, 13 is too much. I'd be good for like 4. We just have to play. We don't have to play the Cardinals this year. Screw that. It's aggravating. All right. Well, illusion or otherwise, there are some teams that are still competing. And so this is the point of the year when baseball should be getting interesting. The bad teams are falling out of it, and they can help boost the good teams by giving them some players, and then we can watch the good teams play each other, I guess.
Just don't know if enough of them are going to fall out or not.
Yeah, it is one thing. It was crazy to me that they added another playoff team, and they did move the trade deadline back.
Right.
You're basically saying, okay, more teams are going to be in the playoff hunt, but they're going to have to decide at the exact same time whether or not they're in it or not. And I still don't understand why they got rid of the waiver trades. I mean, they were complicated. They were stupid. They usually didn't come out to anything, but it was a whole month of content. Like, ooh, this guy made it through waivers. I think
we
players
talked about this last year, didn't we?
Yeah. Did we decide players didn't like it because it was embarrassing to clear waivers?
Well, because it was a stress that they didn't want to have.
Yeah.
I believe that's what we determined.
Yeah, and to me, they should have just split the difference. If you're going to get rid of the August trades, then you move the trade deadline back to the middle of August. You give everybody 2 more weeks to decide. Or you can come up with some, they like to complicate things. They can come up with some other, like the interleague trade deadline is July 31st. And then till the 15th of August, you can only make a trade with a team in your league. Some ridiculous thing just to, differentiate between the two. But something.
Right.
Throw us a bone. All right. Well, glad you're back.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, we'll talk in a couple of weeks then.
Okay.
Many of us have herpes.
Post-game show is brought to you by Christ, I can't find it. The hell with it.
It's fitting. It's got to be done with one of the best games of all time. Just unbelievable. I mean, got to congratulate the Dolan family.
Sean, my podcast co-host Andy, you were his favorite player growing up.
Oh, thank you so much. Awesome.